My first job in the restaurant industry, I was 14 years old working at my aunt and uncle's restaurant, Italian restaurant, scooping gelato.
No, Burger King was my first job in the restaurant hospitality industry. Also about the age of 14 or 15, first job. And no, always thought I would be in the industry as either a server or a manager, but never as an entrepreneur.
You, ma'am.
My first job in the hospitality industry was Shoney's Big Boy. Do you guys have done that? I was in college, and one of my friends was making so much money as a waitress, as we called them back then, and I got that job. And because it relates, I will say that all through undergrad and graduate school, I served everything from diners to really high-end restaurants. And on my last day of grad school, in my serving job, I left and screamed, "I am never coming back to the restaurant industry."
And here you are.
And here I am.
How many restaurants like this?
Yeah.
How long did that last?
It lasted 14 years.
Okay.
Yeah, 14 years.
What brought you back?
This is a late in life, almost my third career, and I'd always wanted to open a restaurant. I've been cooking since I was about 9, and I was stupid enough to think it would be an easy thing to do.
I love it. I served at a small Italian restaurant, and then I interned with Gord Food Service Young in undergrad, so that helped open my eyes a little bit more as well.
I went to Miami University on scholarship, and part of my student loan duties was to work in the cafeteria. Everything from serving food to cleaning up to whatever it was. Yeah.
Red Hawk.
Yeah, I went to Miami as well.
I graduated long. I was not a Red Hawk. Let's just say that's how long ago I went to Miami. So, I mean, the direct route was I represented small and independent businesses from the time I was in the North at the Short North Business Association, and then I went to the North Market, and that really got me here because I started a craft beer festival in the early 2000s, and there wasn't a craft beer festival at the time. We were basing it on our successful Ohio Wine Festival, and my boss and I were standing on the steps of the North Market, and he talking about the wine festival, and he's like looking at Barley's, he's like, "You think we can do this with craft beer?" And I was like, "Hold my beer, let's find out." There were 6 craft breweries in Columbus at the time, and all 6 of them came to our first event. We're like, "Is anyone going to come to this?"
Yeah.
And then 3,000 people showed up for the first craft beer festival at the North Market. And then there were 8 breweries, and then there were 10 breweries. And ultimately they started a nonprofit organization, and they're like, "Hey, we need somebody to run this thing, and you know something about nonprofits. What do you think about representing breweries?" 11 years later, here I am.
I was in my last role, and my boss came to me, this wonderful woman who's in the restaurant industry, and she said, "I think that there's this role at Wendy's that would be a great fit for you, and we can't match that opportunity at my previous company." And so she asked if she could recommend me for the position at Wendy's. So I've been really fortunate. I've actually only had female bosses in my entire career. And it's been a great mentoring and support.
That's amazing.
Experience.
That's so cool. How often do you have your boss come to you and recommend you to leave the company because of a growth opportunity?
Yeah.
Because that means how much they care about you as a person and wanting to help you grow and develop. That's awesome.
It was really great. And the other thing that was really cool about that is she cared so much about the restaurant industry that she knew that they weren't able to match that opportunity for me. And so she wanted to keep my talent within the industry so that she knew that would be beneficial for her long term.
We need a Hall of Fame. Let's nominate this woman who lives in the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely. So I've had great female mentors. A lot of women found me very early on in this entrepreneurship journey, and whether they put me in their cohort or tucked me under their wing. But this year or last year, was my mentor for 1 year through a woman's mentor match program.
Oh, nice.
And I wanted her to be my mentor for 4 years. So every year I would go to the mentor match program and say, I'll do it if I can have it. And then every year, maybe I was busy or traveling and all these things. And then again, last year they came to me and same response, I'll do it if I can have And they called me the next morning at like 7:30 in the morning. When I saw the phone ring and that person's name come up, I'm like, okay. And they says, guess what? And I'm like, we got it. And it was phenomenal. Yeah, I spent a whole year with her, and she helped me both personally and professionally. And great to have an industry-specific mentor. Yeah, because she could really relate to, and being a female in the hospitality industry and a leader of such a big organization as we're trying to grow. And yeah, priceless.
So when I transitioned from the fashion industry and wanted to open a restaurant, before I even left, I just knew of Liz Lesner. And all her restaurants. So I left her notes and, talked to everyone before, social media, and finally got in touch with her and met with her. And I said, should I open a restaurant, and told her a little bit about my background. And I thought she would say no. She's like, if you're willing to do dishes when the dishwasher calls off, open a restaurant. And then for the first couple of years, she really gave me good advice, platitudes or number figures that really have helped out since then. So
Great. Fantastic.
Yeah. What's interesting is at the beginning of my career, there were not many females in leadership at my organization. And so I was very blessed to find some awesome advocates and mentors that were males that could be a voice for me when I wasn't in the room, that could advocate. And through that, I continued to get stretch projects, growth opportunities, etc. And it's super cool to see the growth that we have seen over the last 15 years, just in, being one of the only females in the state of Ohio in leadership, to now the head of U.S. distribution is a female, and the head of all of supply chain and merchandising is a female. So, it's been a cool journey.
That's awesome. I'll also cop to Liz Lesner in my role as the director of the Ohio of the Shortnut
we
Business
gotta
Association.
give a shout out to her on this somehow. Yeah.
In the brewing industry, I would say Lori Wintz, who was from Weasel Boy Brewing Company, she was secretary at the time and the only female board member on the board, and she is responsible for hiring me along with other executive committee members. And then from there, Lisa Walters from Yellow Springs Brewery, and other women who have been on our board that have really just been very inspiring. Because when I started a beer festival at the North Market in like 2009, I think there was like me and our staff, and then there were just a whole bunch of dudes at this beer festival. And I was like, hey, all the single ladies, whether you like beer or not, you should probably come to the beer festival at the North Market, because there's a lot of what looks like to be eligible dudes here. And now our industry has definitely grown and expanded, and there's a lot more women in the industry.
Yeah. I actually got this advice from a mentor, and it was to be bolder, be 10 times bolder. I think as females, that's something that we don't always do. I was at a women's conference, and one of the things we talked about is how many times was I unsure about taking a leap, and I wasn't confident in myself to do that. So I've continued to challenge myself and challenge the folks that I mentor. Be bolder, be confident, take the risk, and trust your gut, because through that there were times where I didn't trust myself, and it makes a big difference.
Volunteer or talk to the people who have the jobs that you want to have or that you think you might want to have someday, especially other women. Like, I'll take anybody out for a beer or a coffee and talk about the very unlikely path I took to where I was in retail at an Elder Beerman department store to how I got to where I am today. And just having that encouragement and having confidence in yourself, I think, goes a long way.
Yeah. And to add to that, don't be afraid to advocate for yourself, because no one else will do it if you don't. So don't be afraid to make it known what you want out of your career, and don't be afraid to take those bold steps to try to get it.
Yeah.
I always tell people you can't be it if you can't see it. So surround yourself with women that are doing it. Find those people in the industry. Find your people, if you will.
Yeah.
And then be a part of it, which I think goes to what you said, is, immerse yourself, right, with what's going on. And I think you find your people that way.
No one's ever told me to be bolder. I'm serious, but I think, again, what you guys said, reaching out, like Liz, you think at the time, oh, this huge restaurant owner is not going to have time for me. But, you know, just like we know now, not many people reach out. And unfortunately, the world is still about networking, and we help each other when we know other people, and just reaching out to someone. And I don't think any of us would not take time to talk or meet someone for coffee. I was going to mention that I came from the fashion industry, which is filled with female leaders. In fact, there are more female leaders, and there's just not a lot of straight men in the fashion industry. And so I was very fortunate in that sense. I had never experienced sexism in my career until I opened a restaurant, and it was such a shock to me. You know, going in a room with men where I'm the most powerful one in the room, and they shake everyone's hand but yours, or, you know, being told because I'm advocating for what I believe in that I'm too emotional. It was shocking to me. I guess I just was pretty naive. And I would just say, you know, if I had not had that experience previous to build me up, it might have taken me down. But luckily I had a strong foundation. So I would just advocate for women, like you said, advocating for yourself and knowing that we're all in it together kind of thing.
I do, but I also I'm very much in the nonprofit world, right? I've run a series of nonprofits, and I feel like there are more women in the nonprofit world, and that we do support each other. And so now I feel like my role in the brewing industry is to help support other women. Yeah. And so in that regard, I go around the state, and there's International Women's Day is March 8th, and different breweries, the women of the brewery will brew a beer for International Women's Day. I go to each of those breweries, and it's such a great experience, and it's so affirming and reaffirming for the women who are participating. And I would just want to put them all in a room together. You guys are great, and you guys are great from all over the state. And so we created a celebration of women in Ohio craft beer that will be on April 5th this year in Cincinnati. And so all those beers that are brewed for International Women's Day, and we bring all those women together, and then we have a panel of women in the industry to just share their experiences. Because I want to help bring more women into the industry and help affirm the ones that are there. Yeah. And so that's how I can do that in a small part.
I feel like for me it's more of a personal experience. So the name of the brand is Dos Hermanos Taco Truck. So people identify maybe a chef as a male. They don't expect a female owner.
Right.
The expectation is that I'm not a woman, that I speak Spanish, which I do not. This is always a big aha for people, and that I'm African American. And I feel like when I walk into the room, people already have this preconceived notion of who I am, and then voila, here I am. Someone totally different than what they perceive. But, in terms of trying to get a loan or, all these things are against me, even on paper, before I even walk into the conversations. Sure. I would go back to some advice that we talked about. I always say, I don't just want a seat at the table, like you said, be bold. I want to get paid to sit at the table.
Right.
Boom. Mic drop.
Yeah, I'll go next. I'm not exactly answering either of your questions, but one of the things that first popped in.
There's the question you asked, and then there's the answer I'm going to tell you.
When I was growing up, I remember my parents constantly telling me that I needed to find a husband to support my lifestyle. And just that upbringing of never having that expectation for yourself, really leads you to second guess a lot of times. Yeah. And so even just overcoming the things that have been ingrained in you since you were growing up. So I think is also a challenge. It's not just in the workplace, it's our entire lives.
Yeah.
So I started my career in the industry young, and so I was a young female, very male dominated, and I was the only female. And not only that, I was younger by 15 plus years. Wow. So I would say at times it was the age dynamic that was a challenge. And then there was the gender piece. Kathleen, you shared some comments or things that you experienced. I've experienced some of those. But at the same time, it also shows me how much opportunity there still is for growth and for us to continue to educate. And I think about, how can we help even some of our male counterparts? How can we help them be better advocates in situations like that? So it's been a journey.
Can I add something?
Please.
Especially to what you said. I think most people think that a traditional route to being a restaurant owner is through the kitchen. And that was something that I felt like I was used to being on $1 million photo shoots for huge brands, and I came into my own kitchen and felt all this masculine energy and felt like a stranger in my own kitchen when I opened a restaurant. And I love the conversation that's been happening over the years. I think the Bear prompted it because I am a traditional cook. I'm not a line cook. I'm a prep cook in kitchen parlance. And I've always been a little intimidated by these chefs to wield their big knives. And I finally have come into my own, and I get that this female, our female energy as cooks, we're the ones who cook throughout history, and I embrace that so much more. And I don't second guess myself anymore if I tell them about a flavor profile or something. No, you're wrong. I know I'm right about this, and I usually am. So I think if we somehow make the energy surrounding cooking and kitchens about females as much as males, that will help our industry a lot.
I feel like our industry needs more empathy, especially for the people that work so hard behind the scenes. The people that work in the kitchens and the dish, the back of house, the servers that have to come in and put the space on every day, even though they may not have childcare that day, or one kid is homesick, and all these things, these backstories that happen during the day. We're expected. We're hospitality, right? So we come in, we want to roll out the red carpet. We always have to be on, per se. But I think we should slow down a little bit and show some empathy to, people that work in our industry.
Yeah.
I know.
I'm ready.
You're ready.
Told you I'm bold. So anyway, I am having a hard time educating my customers about food costs. I think that if we could do a better job as an industry, helping customers understand that we are hurting as much as they are in times like these, and that our food costs are our food costs and our menu prices are our menu prices. None of us are getting Elon Musk rich here. It's about educating the customer that you're paying for what you get, and if you're paying... Sorry, I can't say that, can I?
Well, can I give the generic answer that a government affairs person is saying? We need more people to talk about what Catalina was just sharing. We need people to advocate for restaurants, not just to the customer, but to the decision makers and policy makers. If they aren't hearing from restaurant owners, then they're not going to be creating policies that are supportive of restaurant owners. So make sure that you advocate for your business.
As you talk about that, I think about not many people recognize how large of an industry we are. I think about, I went to college and I didn't think, now I say, who would have thought I'd be selling green beans for a living, but the opportunities within our industry are endless. Oftentimes people think of, the starter, frontline type positions, but I don't think they understand how many growth opportunities they are in all facets of the industry. And that's something that I hope that we can show how awesome the industry is, to continue to attract more people in and show this is a career opportunity. This is not, hey, I'm in between jobs, or I just need something to work nights through college. You can do that, and it can fit your lifestyle there, but it can fit you anywhere throughout your career, and you can grow with it. So I think that's something I didn't realize that at the beginning, and so many people don't realize that. So I hope that that's something we can continue to grow.
Done.